Hey, hello again, and welcome back to my channel. Yes, I'm wearing the same thing as I was in the other video because this is actually the same day. Um, yeah, but you're not going to see this today, you're going to see this tomorrow. So you're going to see this on Tuesday. The video that I done earlier, you'll see later on today. And then, yeah, this video you'll see tomorrow. And why am I doing two videos in the same day? Guys, I just obviously you saw when I went to the shop and you saw when I bought snacks for everyone, and I just thought it's a nice calm day, whatever, and we all decided we're gonna watch a movie. I'm actually posting my video that's meant to be for today a little later because we had problems with our Wi-Fi earlier, and the reason why is because yeah, so the reason why I was watching this movie is because it was already recorded. So we thought, okay, since the internet's playing out, no Netflix, let's watch a movie. I remember around Christmas time, Edward Scissorhands came on, and I recorded it, and we just hadn't watched it in ages. The last time I watched Edward Scissorhands was, I think, I was like, I don't know how old I was, but it was definitely in the 90s. The movie came out in 1990, and it's triggering. Like, that movie is so messed up. Like, I personally, like, I don't know how us as 90s children enjoyed that movie, because watching it as an adult, you see so much wrong with it. Right, so, I even wrote down notes. That's how messed up this movie is, yeah? So, obviously, um, obviously, now it starts off with this old lady. She's a grandma, and she's telling her granddaughter a story, a bedtime story. And obviously, the story is the story of Edward Scissorhands. Like, he's made by this brilliant inventor, and then the inventor dies, and then poor Edward is just left to fend for himself until this Avon lady, who's sort of like getting rejected by everyone in her neighborhood. Like, her neighborhood is like an all white sort of suburban area, and no one's really interested in her Avon products whatsoever. And so she goes to this scary house on the top of the hill, like this big castle mansion. She knocks on the door, no one answers, so she goes in and she sees Edward Scissorhands, and she helps him out, she brings him home, and she just treats him like a son, and she's loving and she's caring. She also has children of her own. And obviously the daughter, the other main character, doesn't meet Edward till like 2 or 3 days later, when she comes home from a camping trip with her boyfriend and her friends and whatever. Anyway, and so at first she's a bit wary of him. She don't really trust him. She's wondering, right? Yeah, that's another thing. Edward Scissorhands, he doesn't have usual hands. He has scissors for hands. Get it? Edward Scissorhands. Anyway, honestly, like, the movie's so wrong. Like, everyone's all of a sudden fascinated with who's this new guy that's hanging out at this lady's house. They wasn't interested in her before. Now they're flocking around her house because of this guy with these scissor hands. Next minute, everyone's using him to cut their grass, to cut their bushes into like different sculptures, to make cut food, like, because there's kinds of like giant scissors, and everyone's just using him for haircuts and just using the crap out of him, basically, like just using him for everything. And it's almost like that's his only use, but he's seeing it as acceptance, because you have to remember, you would feel like, okay, everyone likes me because you spend all this time all on your own, and all of a sudden you're around this suburban area. But there's two people who don't like him. There's this one church lady who thinks that he's like sent from hell because he's like not real, like he's not like them. and he has scissors for hands and he's different, and she's like, oh, he's sent by the devil, but no one really listens to her. And then there's who else? Who else looked like him? The boyfriend, the main girl's boyfriend. Now, the girl's played by Winona Ryder, I think, but she's got like a ginger wig or whatever. And obviously everyone knows like Winona Ryder is really pretty, so obviously she's going to play the love interest, and there's a love triangle, and the boyfriend can't stand Edward Scissorhands, but in the end they discover that he knows how to open doors with his fingers, well, with his scissors, you know, because like he could just like pick locks. And so they get him to break into his house, you know, to steal something, I don't know. But then in the end, the alarm goes off and they just leave him there, including the main character, Winona Ryder. I forgot her name in the movie, but they just leave him there, and then he gets arrested. Then everyone sort of turns against them. They turn against the family and they turn against him. And from that point forward, everything he does, you know, is just totally misunderstood. They, for example, what happens? Yeah, sorry. I just, you know what? Movies like this just really mess with my energy. It just messes with my whole frequency. And you know what? I meditated this morning and I was so happy. I don't know. I know what it's like to feel misunderstood. I know what it's like to say something or do something with one intention, but then if people think that you have a total different intention. Like, I understand what it's like, so I think that's why I found the movie so triggering. But I know that a lot of people would also find that movie triggering. Um, yeah, so one of the one of the reasons why, you know, he's misunderstood. The boyfriend, you know, gets dumped by Winona Ryder, and then he comes back. He comes drink driving in his van, and he almost knocks over her little brother. And then Edward sees this and runs over and, you know, grabs the boy and like moves him out of the way. But because obviously he's got giant scissors for hands, he accidentally cuts the boy, and everyone looking out the window is thinking that he's attacking the little boy. And then yeah, and also there's another really off scene, like there's another really twisted scene as well. The one of the, obviously Edward's, he's meant to be young, that's why he's got a crush on Winona Ryder, because she's also young, you know, he's meant to be young. And that's why, you know, the lady treats him like a child, because he's meant to be young. But the woman, the older ginger woman, she sort of has a crush or something on Edward, and then sleeps with him or something, I don't know. Again, refer back to my video I made. I'm actually gonna link it on the top when I post this. But yeah, female pedophilia in Hollywood needs to be stopped. It's so disgusting. And yeah, anyway, but then because everyone's turned their backs on Edward, she makes out that Edward assaulted her, you know, and everyone's saying things like, oh, you know, Edward's not right. And the woman then before, the churchy woman that didn't like Edward in the first place, like, it's like, oh yeah, see, I told you, look, you didn't listen. And they're all like, oh yeah, that's true, whatever. Anyway, so they're all chasing Edward because Edward went off, you know, he realised he's not welcome. He realised, you know, there's a really crucial scene where I think he opens his eyes to how he's getting used, because he's sitting on the porch. This is like near the end of the movie. He's sitting on the porch and he's really upset. He's sitting on the curved pavement, whatever you want to call it. And then a dog with like hair in his eyes and everything comes and sits next to him. And Edward notices, okay, the dog can't really see because he's got all this fur in his eyes. So he trims the dog's fringe, and then the dog looks at him and then runs off. And then I think Edward gives the look like, okay, he understands that he's just there to serve. Like, it's not about friendship, it's not about acceptance, yeah. And he's just depressed. Also, another crucial point. Now, there's no black people in this movie. The only black person in this movie is the police officer, and he's genuinely concerned about Edward. Like, he's not a police officer that's like, he's not being judgmental like all the others. So anyway, as everyone's chasing Edward back to his castle that he was staying at before the Avon lady found him, everyone's chasing him, and so the police officer decides, okay, I'm going to pretend like I shot him. So he fires gunshots into the air, and he comes back to the crowd and he's like, everything's done, it's over. But the white people, they don't believe him, and they charge on in anyway to see, okay, what's going on. They don't believe him. So that's another point. Yeah, when they get Edward, when the turning point is, they get Edward to break into the house, and then they leave him there. The girl, Winona Ryder, as much as she's angry at her boyfriend for not telling the truth, she's not exactly either. She's letting all these people think that he's, a robber. She's listening to her dad, asked him questions like, oh, what do you do if you see a bag of money and no one's around? Do you hand it to the police, or what do you do? She's not exactly saying, no, Dad, this is what happens. Like, she's being very selfish because, yeah, she knows that she'll get in trouble for it, but she knows she's already accepted. She knows that Edward is an outcast. Edward is an outcast, and it's more sad for him than it would. Like, she'll be forgiven quicker than Edward will, and she knows this. But even though you see her being upset and angry at her boyfriend for not coming forward about the robbery, she's not exactly sticking up for Edward either. She's not exactly, saying to everyone, look, this is what happened. She's not saying that, is she? And so, to be honest, in my opinion, she's not totally innocent. So anyway, back to where we were. Everyone's charging towards his house, and the person who gets there first is Winona Ryder, and she's saying that she loves him, and then they have their first kiss, and he hugs her. Well, she asks for a hug, and then he remembers the moment that his inventor died. His inventor died because I think it was like Christmas or something, and the inventor surprised him with hands, like actual hands. And just as he was approaching Edward with these hands, he had a heart attack and died. Edward tried to catch the hands, because obviously he wanted them, and because of his scissors, he ended up cutting up the hands, and so he couldn't use them. So he was stuck with the scissors, which is so sad. Anyway, just as everything seems to be hunky-dory, well, not hunky-dory, but, she tells him that, she loves him and everything like that, the boyfriend comes in, tries to kill Edward, but then in the end, Edward kills him, and then, yeah, he says goodbye to her because he knows that they can't really be together. Well, Edward says goodbye to Winona Ryder because he knows that they can't really be together because of their different worlds. And she says bye, and then that's it. I mean, she goes out and remember how they didn't believe the black guy when the black guy said that he killed Edward, and they didn't believe him, but they took the white girl's word though. They took Winona Ryder's word. She came out and she had one of the hands, you know, a spare hand. Well, spare scissor hand, I don't know. And she said, "Oh look, you know, like he died. The roof fell on top of us and well, on top of him, and they both killed each other." And then everyone just walks off, and they look all upset. But to be honest, it's like they didn't really care about him anyway. So yeah, I just found the movie triggering. So then he just went back to just living all by himself, and you just see him wandering around, cutting up hedges. He even made the sculpture of Winona Ryder. And yeah, and then it goes back to the story that the grandma was telling the little girl in the beginning of the movie. And the grandma's like, and the little girl's like, "Oh, so what happened?" And she's like, "Oh, and you know, Winona Ryder never saw the Edward again." The little girl's like, "How do you know?" And she's like, "Oh, because I'm the girl," or whatever she says. And she says, "Oh, so is Edward still alive?" And she says, "I don't know, I don't think so, but I know that since that day, since before he came, it snows every Christmas." And there's also a scene where he's like carving this ice sculpture. This is like, it's like after the robbery. So it's really back and forth. If you've watched this movie or if you know it, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't watched it, I'm so sorry. I'm so bad at spoilers. But yeah, he's he's cutting up the ice sculpture and then he accidentally cuts her. But the reason why he accidentally cuts her is because she's like, obviously they live in a hot town where it don't really snow, and so she's enjoying, you know, where he's doing it so fast it looks like it's snowing, and she's like dancing in the snow. And then because she's like going too close to him and he's not seeing her, he accidentally cuts her. And that's another way that that's another reason why he's also misunderstood. Well, another incident, should I say, where he's misunderstood, because it was a total accident. Everyone just thinks that he's a monster because he's different. And I just found that movie so triggering. It is so triggering. Like, I don't know how 90s children were allowed to watch that movie. You know when you're